Okay, so here are some common JavaScript resources imported from Dojo. These are things that you would need to a Dojo require to utilize. And ESRI.map is one of the most common ones for just using a lot of different things. And here's some other examples that we'll be using probably all of these in the course. Any questions? Another Dojo statement that you'll see a lot is Dojo ready. It's kind of like on load in desktop, or initialize in a Windows desktop form, or on load in an HTML page. The Dojo ready function runs when the page is opening. So it's good to put code here. What it means is this code won't run until the page is ready. I said a lot of times that this is easier than C#, but sometimes there's things that are more tricky in the web. You got a lot of different things that want to run at the same time, and you can have an issue where code tries to run before it's ready. Code within the Dojo ready statement will not run until the web page has loaded, and then on load code will run. So in the legacy version, dojo.ready init, you would have, I guess it's not pictured here, you have a function named init. So then the function named init would run when the code was ready. In the AMD version, you do dojo/ready and you put the function right there. So as I said, this function will not run until the DOM, document object model, in other words, until all the tags on the page have loaded. Okay, so here I do have this on the next slide. So if I have dojo.ready init, I then would need to put somewhere in my JavaScript this function named init. And for example, here, this is where you would add a new map. As we'll see, either tonight or first thing Wednesday, you put a map in a div tag. We talked a little bit about div tags. You use them a bit in Lab 1. An error will occur, and I will forget this after not doing it in a while, if you try and initialize the map before the div tag has been loaded, hence putting it in the dojo.ready. So because this is in dojo.ready, we know that once this map is being initialized, that div tag is already there. Any questions? Like a dojo.connect, another common utilization. This is an event handler. In desktop Windows programming, you'd have onClick as an event. Even in ArcGIS desktop add-in, you would have onClick or on mouse down as an event. This is a way, and HTML objects have clicks. We saw that earlier. But Dojo Connect is a way to take, see, these ESRI objects have events too. And this is how we attach our own function to a particular event. So here, the a map in the ESRI JavaScript API has an event called onLoad. As you might guess, that this would run when the map loads. So in this, I am directing the onLoad event to a function that I'm writing called myLoadHandler. So when the map loads, my own function myLoadHandler would run. You'll see this a lot, more than you would even in C#, and we'll expand upon it a bit further. And here's a require statement that does the same thing. Just to show it before we get into. Another thing I didn't mention, there's a lot of nice samples on this in the samples tab. Oh, that's too simple. We'll do something just like this later in the course. We'll build map queries. So it's actually a way to show you another format. I thought I had a slide here. We had dojo.connect. Another way to do this in JavaScript is a JavaScript object.on. And then in parentheses we have in this nomenclature the name of the event, and then it goes right to an anonymous function that you build right here into the on statement. So in this example, and we will do this later, I'm building in when this featured layer has been loaded, this function will run when it's loaded. And we'll talk a lot more about that later. I just wanted to give you a sneak preview of these connect handlers. We'll do a lot of that using this context and the JavaScript.on context. So again, it's a way to tie your own custom function that you're writing to a map event, or a layer event, or a graphic event, or so on. I thought there was another screenshot in here I just want to bring up as an example. I think I have it later in the course. So on map, we have attributes, properties of a map, graphics that it contains, what layers it has, width, and so on, and methods, adding a layer. We'll do that a lot. You want to add your own layer to a map. But this shows just an example of events. So these are all the different events that happen with the map. And we have on style events. The event name is actually different, which is weird. So that's the object.on like I just showed you, or dojo.connect. With dojo.connect, it's different. So if it's map.on, the event is basemap-change. So I always say C# is more difficult, but this is something that's a little confusing about JavaScript. So dojo.connect, there's an on basemap change. So that means you can write a function that runs whenever the person changes the basemap, say between topo and imagery and so on. When a user clicks on a map, you'll use that. And it's not worth going over all these. The purpose is to show you how many different events a map has. You can have specific code run when a layer is added, when layers are reordered, mouse down just like in desktop, the user resizes the map, and so on. I think I have an orphan slide somewhere else, because I know I made a slide at this point. Don't think that you have to make connect functions that you don't have to. It's a waste of your time and slows down the program. You don't have to make an event for any of those if you don't use them. Only build a connect with the particular events that are required for your program. Another one, dojo.byId, lets you grab an HTML tag on the page using its ID. So if there's a txt longitude text box on your HTML, you could get that object using this dojo.byId. Any questions? So we'll start to go through some of our first steps for creating an ArcGIS server map. And I think I went and closed the slideshow. So the first thing we would do is create an HTML page. Now this could be another type of page, an ASPX.NET page, and so on. We'll, for simplicity, keep it as an HTML page in this course. But we need an HTML page that will house the map. So I'm going to go in, click File, New File. Say HTML page. Call it June18 class. So notice we get a basic HTML page with the basic tags. And that's shown in slides 21 and 22. We then need to add links to the style sheets and to the JavaScript kind we were talking about a few moments ago. And we'll do that in the, first let me add a title. Do that in the header section. So now to review, I'm referencing this style sheet directly from ESRI's I'm also representing the Claro, which we'll get into, style sheet that ESRI produces. So I've referenced two style sheets. And then I'm also, perhaps more, no, they're both important, going to reference the JavaScript API version 3.9. So now on my web page, you won't see anything yet, but we have an HTML page with references to the appropriate style sheets and script. So now we're going to add to our body a script tag. Type equals JavaScript. And so this will run, I get rid of that. This script will run whenever the page is loaded. So the very first statement would be dojo.require esri.map. So now we're saying that this page requires esri.map to be loaded from the JavaScript API. Any questions? So now that we talked about just a few minutes ago, we need the dojo.ready statement. And I note in the slide there's also a dojo.add-on-load. I can't necessarily name the differences. They're very subtle. I know there are some subtle differences. I just use ready. That's what a lot of the examples show. It's also less typing. So here, The init function will not run until the page is ready. So now that I've done that, I need to create an init function. Remember to define a function, it's the word function, the name of the function, just parentheses if there are no arguments, and then brackets start and end the function. So we're getting there. So within this function is where we want to create our map. We don't want the map to try and load before the page is ready. A couple weeks ago I was driving myself crazy and realized that I had initialized the map outside this function, and the map was doing just that. It was trying to load before the tags that housed it were ready yet, and I was getting an error. The errors are not always very user-friendly. You get bizarre errors that aren't necessarily clear always as to what they really mean. So within that, I'm going to create a new map, a variable called map. I'm going to use the new keyword like we would in C#. It's a new esri.map, and I'm going to do this. We'll explain further later. The map in quotes, that is the name of the div tag on the HTML page where the map will be placed. There is no div tag yet. There will be. That's basically telling JavaScript where to put the map. The blank brackets we'll talk a lot about too. The second option is a set of options for the map that we can set. And that would be presented in JSON format. So here I have a list of, not here. Here I have a list of different options that we can set. The center of the map, what base map to use, and many others. Maximum zoom, minimum zoom, and a whole lot more. To start out, we'll keep it simple and then grow from there. We're just going to leave it like that. So it's going to go in the div name map and no options at this point. But actually on the next slide I do have, let's fill in two options in JSON. So one of the options is setting extent. What is the initial extent of the map going to be? So then you would set it to a new esri.geometry.extent object and give it the xmin, ymin, xmax, and ymax. In other words, the lower left and upper right of the extent. Remembering, of course, that Western Hemisphere is negative longitude. So remember, this is JSON. So we have a coordinate pair, or a value attribute pair. Extent is set to this. Where to put all these commas is tricky. And then I'm going to do comma. Another property is slider, true. So this will have a slider. And I'll set the initial base map National Geographic. We're getting there. Notice I don't have anywhere to put it yet. We need to create that div tag. So under body, I am going to set class equals Claro. Oops. And I'm going to set a div tag within the body. ID equals map. It has to be the same name. The ID has to be equivalent to what we defined in the map initialization here. See that? And I'm going to do an inline style. Style equals width 700 px, height 700 px. So I'm forcing the div tag map to be 700 by 700 pixels. I think we have enough to start our first browser. Right click, view in browser, and there we go. Our first JavaScript API map. I can go back and modify that. Okay, make it 500 by 500. I could change the base map. Satellite, it's not, for example. You would continue with working with layers. Maybe this is a good point to break. We're already halfway through next week's lecture. Are there any questions before we do that?